Firestarter, published in 1980, was Stephen King's eighth published novel. It was written at a time when he was struggling with a drug and alcohol dependency, writing frantically, and some would argue at his hottest. So right smack in the middle of it all, he penned Firestarter, a red-hot thriller which had me, ironically, burning through the pages, as if the character referenced in the title, young Charlie McGee, was standing over me, igniting my imagination as many a Stephen King novel does. I can imagine King ripping a giant line of coke, lighting a cigarette, and smoke rising from his typewriter as the friction from his fingers acted like a kind of flint. He was, certainly, on fire. For a thriller, Firestarter is sweltering. The action begins on the first page. Andy McGee and his daughter, Charlie, are being pursued through the streets of New York. Why? Well, King doesn't outright tell us, in certain terms at least. The first inkling we get involves a taxi fare, where a $1 bill takes the appearance of a $500 bill. And who is pursuing the father and daughter? Someone nefarious, no doubt. The heat is on. Andy and Charlie make their way to the Albany International Airport, where Charlie's peculiar talents manifest for the first time in the novel, a rather unpleasant man's shoes catching fire. The two must flee now, and they find themselves on the farmland of Irv and Norma Manders. Their pursuers are hot on their heels, and another escape occurs. This time the duo end up on Andy's deceased grandfather's old property. But wait, how did they come to possess these powers? And where is Charlie's mother? It transpires that Andy and Vicky, Charlie's mother, had volunteered for a scientific experiment in college. They were injected with a barely understood compound, Lot 6, which produced mild hallucinogenic effects, and unbeknownst to the young couple, chromosomal changes along with psychic abilities. So when they settled down and had a child, this child was born with a rather pronounced psi ability, that is, so-called pyrokinesis. She is a fire starter. Before the chase began, Charlie was on a playdate with another child, and Andy was not home. The shop, that is, the government agency who were keeping tabs on the McGees and who were aware of Charlie's powers, broke into their home and tortured Vicky and killed her when it became apparent she would not talk. The shop is portrayed as a deeply secretive agency, one the general public does not know about, and one with no ethical oversight. So when they finally capture Andy and Charlie, they intend to keep them only until they understand their unique abilities. And when they had, they would kill them both. This was all in the name of national security. King seems prescient in this regard. Firestarter sits at the place where King had really come into his own. He had published Carrie, a book which displayed all the talents he had, but still a diamond in the rough, 6 years previously, and he would go on to pen his best-known and one of his most widely regarded books. It, 6 years later. He had Salem's Lot, The Shining, and The Stand under his impressive belt going into Firestarter, and though Firestarter isn't considered his best work, it still remains part of the canon as virtually every book he ever wrote is. In Firestarter, King displays his well-honed sense of character. He seems to understand exactly what Americans think and how they think. It's why he's considered Americana in literary terms. The relationship between Andy and Charlie is believable and very endearing. As always, he can write emotion so that the reader, in a sense, experiences the very emotion he writes about. His turn of phrase is casual and realistic, and each character has their own distinct personality, their actions and words reflecting this characterization. King fundamentally respects his characters, and this is evident in Firestarter. King pulls off magic. How can one write a thriller about the characters as much as the plot and portray literary merit which never seems to border on purple? Ask King. His expansive imagination is complemented by his down-to-earth empathy. And this, rather than any plot devices, is his working formula for a bibliography which would earn the maestro $500 million as of 2025. But King lives simply and honestly as the characters he imagines. Opening up a Stephen King book you haven't read is like sitting down with an old friend for some brewskis and a catch-up. Firestarter very much so embodies this. And what is Firestarter about other than boundless parental love and resilience of those victimized? While King writes about psychic abilities and shady government organizations, he really, in essence, is giving us a parable which we can apply to our own lives. Though evil may exist, as it does in the form of John Rainbird, a homicidal Vietnam veteran who enjoys watching the last light of life leaving through the eyes of his victims and has taken a liking to Charlie to this end. Good naturally triumphs, in the end, anyway, and possibly due to the very moral fabric of the universe, which is, I think, the point of any Stephen King novel.